Hi, my name is Jack from Painted Legion. Today I'm going to show you how I painted this model. This is Hive Fleet Typhon, one of Games Workshop's new schemes, and at first glance this can seem like quite a daunting scheme to have a go at. But with contrast paints, we can actually do this quite easily. In this video I'll show you how. First we're going to start with a layer of Briar Queen Chill over a white primed model, which I won't show because I forgot to record it. Then we'll take Ulthuan Grey, and I'm going to do a heavy dry brush over the whole model. This is going to pick out all the raised areas of the model and leave some of that Briar Queen Chill in the recesses and some of the shadowed parts, but give us a nice bright skin tone on top. And we can then use this pretty much off-white, it's a sort of bluish white, to work up to the darker colours that we're going to use, the more vibrant colours. Painting with contrast is kind of like painting backwards sometimes. You're starting with the lighter colour and going and working down, I suppose, towards the darker colour. Whereas normal painting with regular paints, you're sort of painting up to highlights. Once you're all done with that, I'm going to go in with the Fang. Now, we're going to mix this with a bit of contrast medium. I got a comment on my last Reddit post that someone thought this wasn't an easy step to do, and I can understand why someone might look at this and I find it a little off-putting. It looks like a complicated step, but it really isn't any different to thinning your paints so that they go on smoothly, or watering down your paint so it becomes a wash. That's pretty much what we're doing here. We're just making it into a wash. So we're going to go in and we're going to apply this to all the upper parts of the limbs, as well as the main body and neck of the termagant. We're going to do several layers of this to build up the colour. So make sure that it's going on thin. Don't rush this step. Getting good transitions between the colours is really important. Okay, so I've taken a hairdryer to speed up the drying time. So we're applying the second layer here. And we're doing it a little further up the limbs now. Building that transition between the lighter and the darker colours. Also adding some more to the natural shadows of the body. So the holes that you get at the end of the tail, the underneath part of the tail, and a little bit under the armour as well. And for the third layer, this we're really focusing up sort of the top part of the bicep, the tricep of the arms, working it up into the shoulder. We're going to mix in a little bit of Black Templar contrast into our the Fang contrast mix now. I'm going to use this to fill in the deepest shadows, but also work the most upper parts of the limbs into a much darker colour. Make sure this is light. If you need to mix in some extra contrast, medium, do so. And we're pushing it. Notice how my brush is moving. I'm starting where I want the transition to begin. I'm pulling my brush up to where I want the transition to be strongest, so at the top of the limb. And by doing this, when you take your brush away from the model, that's where the most pigment is deposited. So where you take your brush off the model is where you're going to get the most paint, it's where you're going to get the strongest colour. And it's a really useful technique to learn, because that's how you do glazing, that's how you do transitions. Okay, next we're going to take some Luxian Purple. Again, we're going to mix this with some contrast medium. Making a wash out of this, just staining the colour. We're not trying to make any part of the model super purple. Probably ends up being about a 2-to-1 mix of contrast medium to Luxian Purple, so more contrast medium in there. We're going to put this all on the body of the termagant. To make sure you get the underside of the belly, the neck, and the back of the tail. Next we're going to put some Volupus Pink, and we're going to carefully apply this into the vents and all the arm joints, all the fleshy joints actually on the model. Take your time with this step. You don't want it to spill over too much. I'm also going to add this colour to the piping on the back of the gun and the tongue, if your model has one. Okay, while we're doing this bit, I'd just like to ask if you've enjoyed this tutorial so far, if you've got some value from it, please like and subscribe. I've got some more Tyranid Hive Fleet tutorials coming up, so don't miss those. And also, I do commission painting, so if you're interested in me painting a model for you, please go to my Instagram and painted_legion and drop me a DM. The link can be found on my YouTube channel. Okay, next we're going to take that Volupus pink again, but we're going to mix it with, again, we're going to mix this into a sort of wash consistency with some contrast medium. Now this is, we're going to do the head transition now. If you're not too sure or haven't done this much before, I suggest going lighter on the mix here. Make it quite a thin mix. Do this in a bunch of passes. Get a feel for how the paint behaves. Because this is the head, it's going to be probably the most prominent feature on the model. You want this transition to be really good. So painting it in, making sure that we're getting the recesses around the jaw of the face and all around the back of the head and the holes next to the head. Now here I'm using a sort of stippling motion almost on the most flat part of the head. My brush is coming off at the point where I want the most colour. So if you do that, you'll get a nice strong colour in that particular part, and then you'll get the sort of the lighter colours in the other parts of the model. Okay, next we're going to take some black Templar again. We're going to paint in the weapon, the armour panels, all the chitin, the hoofs, and the talons. We're also going to fill in the teeth and the eyes with this contrast medium, and we'll go back in and paint the details a bit later. Okay, next we're going to take some Flesh Tearers red. I love this red. Such a great red. You get a really deep red when you put this over black. So we're going to put this over the armor panels on the gun, and also the hoofs and the claws. Okay, once we're done with that, we're going to take Xandri Dust and Screaming Skull. We're going to paint in a few of the details now, starting with the teeth. So just give a line on each tooth of Xandri Dust. And once you're done with that, add a dot of Screaming Skull on the end of each tooth. Do your best to leave a nice black line between each tooth. If you make a mistake, just go back in with some black Templar. Okay, next I'm taking Ulthuan Grey, and I'm going to put a dot of white on the eye to prepare for the orange colour we're going to put on this a bit later. And I'm also going to clean up some of the raised parts on the head. So the tendons in the jaw, and also that bone that sticks out underneath that first hole in the head. I'm also going to put a dot on the eye of the gun, or paint in the eye of the gun with this Ulthuan Grey. And I'm going to use it anywhere else where I've got paint that I don't want to have it. So in places where I've been a bit too messy with the Volupus pink. And then we're going to take Trosslayer Orange and Euro Yellow. I'm going to put some Trosslayer Orange on the eyes and paint over that Ulthuan Grey, and also on the eye of the gun. Then we're going to put a dot of Uriel Yellow onto each of the eyes, making sure that some of that orange is still showing through. The more of the orange that shows through, the better. So don't cover the whole eye, just the main part. And we're going to take some Corn Red and some Demonite Hide. We're not mixing these together or anything. just showing them both now, since we're going to highlight all the armor panels. Starting with the red armor panels on the gun, with corn red. And we're using a feathering motion towards the end of the chitin. It's an important technique to learn. I talked about it a bit in my last video. I'll show it a bit more in a second when I show how I highlight the armor panels. But basically, we're just drawing the brush back in a feathering motion, and it gives the chitin an organic feel to them. It's a really good technique to use on Tyranids. It sort of fills that flat empty surface that's created with a lot of their armor panels. Especially important on the older models. Not so much now. The new models, you can see the chitin on this termagant is wonderfully detailed. Lots of ridges and crevices and cracks and all sorts of places, especially for contrast medium to sit. We're also going to highlight any talons and horns that we painted with the red. We use the demon at height to highlight the gun. Just picking out the raised areas on the gun. Don't cover the whole gun with this. We just want to pick out edges, places that would catch the light, and give it a black-purple look rather than just being purple with darker recesses. And then finally, we're going to take some Dark Reaper and Administratum Grey. Don't need to mix these two. I do, because I like to do this. So it's very similar to it's the exact recipe actually that Games Workshop used on their heavy metal scheme. If you don't want to mix it, that's fine. Just use Dark Reaper on its own, or Administratum Grey, or you could use a lighter blue like Fenrisian Grey. One of the Space Wolf colors would probably be very similar to this. Okay, and once we've got that mixed, all right, this is the technique I was talking about earlier. With the feathering technique, you're going to hold your brush at an angle to the miniature. And then you're going to start that feathering motion on each of the panels. Once you've got the angle right and the paint is coming off how you want it to, you can just move on to the next panel with the tiniest of movements. This is a really important technique to learn with Tyranids. It's what gives them an organic feel to them. Really important to learn. It's very, very quick as well once you get good at it. Much quicker than edge highlighting, in my opinion. So just do this on the edge of each armor panel. To be honest, you don't have to do this. The armor looks pretty good with just the contrast, but I think it gives the model that extra kick of interest that's just going to take it from being pretty cool to looking really cool. Especially in big numbers. When you've got a whole army painted, and with the Tyranids, the armor panels are what show up the most. It's the back of the model. It's what you're going to see the most on the tabletop. So if you've got a really vivid detail on all of them like this, that stands out really well on the table, it's going to look amazing. It's going to look really, really cool. And there we are. There's the finished model. So this one took a bit longer than my Tiamat one, mostly because we're waiting for those drying times a lot of the time. But it's so worth it. You get a brilliant looking scheme for, to be honest, not that much effort. These techniques are very, very low effort, very relaxing, easy to do. The hardest part is mixing them up and getting the right consistency. But once you've done it a few times, you'll get it very fast. So there we are. I hope you liked that video. I've got more Tyranid Hive Fleets on the way, so keep an eye out for that. We've done Tiamat and Typhon now. I've got an Ouroboros one that I've filmed and editing currently. I had a Leviathan, a sort of grimdark Leviathan one, but I lost half the footage for it, which is such a shame. So I'm going to have to refilm that one. I've also got my Hive Fleet C2 recipe that I'm working on. I haven't filmed that one yet. But I also have a Lotan recipe that I'm trying to finish. I'm trying to get right, and I think that's the one that I'm going to use for my main army, for my personal army, for a number of reasons, which I'll probably explain in the future. But yeah, if you're interested in seeing any of those, subscribe, like, and I'll see you in the next one.